And Eugene, back at home, and it is a shame that this really important message, and I was in Cabo Verde a year ago with Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield, where their slave traders stopped a church there for baptizing these slaves into a religion that was not their own, as the whole horror of the slave trade in the 1600s to the U.S. Took place right there, often overlooked when there's so much focus also, of course, on Ghana and other posts. But at the same time, as you can understand, the reporters are questioning him about the pardon, which happened once he was airborne. It was announced Sunday night. Well, NBC broke it, and then it was announced about an hour or so later. Eugene?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, first of all, you're absolutely right that this is an important trip. For the reasons the president laid out, China has been expanding its influence across Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa, and China has a basically insatiable demand for minerals and other resources, and also is seeking strategic advantages for its military, frankly, and the United States has not been in this game sufficiently to counter that, and so it is highly significant that President Obama is making this trip, is highlighting these investments, and trying to get us, make us a player again in sub-Saharan Africa. But yes, people are asking about the pardon. It was unexpected, at least if you sort of if you followed certainly what the president had said during the campaign. But if you also watched some of the appointments in the new administration, particularly Kash Patel in the FBI, and all indications of how the new President Trump in his second term intends to use the Justice Department, then maybe it wasn't so much of a surprise. Maybe, and maybe when you think about Joe Biden and his and what he thinks and feels about family, and the fact that Hunter Biden was charged and prosecuted in a way that people who commit those offenses are not charged and prosecuted, but was indeed singled out because he was Joe Biden's son. That must have weighed on the president, plus the possibility that there could be further political prosecution of Hunter Biden in the next administration, and so he decided to pardon him and give him this sort of sweeping 11-year, 10-year pardon that would obviate further charges should the new administration try to charge him.
And you point out the human aspects of this as well as the political fallout now. Joyce Vance, Special Counsel David Weiss, whom the president had held over as the U.S. attorney in Delaware, he was a Trump appointee, just to show that he was then the U.S. attorney, not a special counsel, but then Merrick Garland made him the special counsel on the Hunter case, leaning overboard, the Biden White House said at the time, to make sure that they had no fingerprints on this and were not trying to, weigh it in any way or influence it in any way. And that's one of the reasons why this pardon doesn't sit well, even with some Democrats, Congressman Daniel Goldman, who, as you know, was a former prosecutor in New York, and others. Andrew Weissman last night was saying, though, that the selectivity of this indictment, not how it evolved, but of the indictment itself, it's a case that he never had seen, the kind of case, the firearms case in particular, that he'd never seen criminally prosecuted. And it wouldn't have happened if his name were not Biden.
I think Andrew's assessment is the correct one. If this had been John Smith, he would not have been charged with being someone addicted to illegal drugs in possession of a firearm. It's really easy for people to understand that although this is technically a crime in the United States Criminal Code, it's not one that prosecutors bring. Almost 10% of Americans acknowledge being addicted to drugs or having struggled with drug addiction. Many of them own firearms. If the Justice Department used all of its resources to prosecute these cases, there wouldn't be any time left for more serious crimes that impact safety in our communities. So you can understand why prosecutors like Andrew and myself would have this reaction to this case. The tax charges as well, although that's a closer call. This is the sort of situation where someone pays back what they owe, plus penalties, plus fines, where usually the civil remedies are deemed to be enough. And it's tough to believe, again, that John Smith would have been indicted on these charges like Hunter Biden was. We saw a little bit of that reflected in the plea deal that David Weiss's office in Delaware was initially willing to offer Hunter Biden. Of course, that deal fell apart because of some irregularities, which is how President Biden ended up in this dilemma where he had to choose between pardoning his son, something he had promised he wouldn't do, and perhaps seeing him incarcerated during the Trump administration under Trump's control.
And Michael Steele, I want to share what Senator Joe Manchin told NBC's Sahil Kapoor about the pardon.
Do you know of any fathers that wouldn't have done the same?
Right.
That's all. And then basically, I went one step further. I thought it would have been a little better move if he'd have pardoned Trump too. Mm-hmm. You follow me? And just said, let's put bygones be gone, put the past behind us, let's move forward.
What do you think about that?
Okay, so before I talk on that, can I just real quick on Africa, just emphasize
Please.
how important it
Absolutely.
is for the president to be there. I've been working on the continent since 1999, and I cannot emphasize enough how poorly America has engaged on the African continent when the Africans across the board want to do business with us. So this is a real big step for the administration to move the economic needle forward between the U.S. and Africa. George Bush did it on the healthcare front with the AIDS crisis in the early 2000s. And now the economic piece, because China is just ripping the country off of its resources, just throwing cash out there in ways that the U.S. needs to respond. Now, having said that, is Joe Manchin high? I don't understand what his point is. Why would he pardon Donald Trump? The Supreme Court has said that he is untouchable. Pardon him for what? He can declare everything official act and move forward. The cases have been thrown out. Pardon him for what? Second thing, Democrats need to get their heads together here and understand the politics here. Joe Biden basically told everybody to kiss his behind. All right, he is going to take. He made it very clear. I am a father and a president, and to think that somehow Donald Trump, who already has pardoned criminals, right, and is now appointing them to his administration, I don't get the drama here. Go, Joe Biden, go.